You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Wednesday. We are still doing it. That's right. Episode number 3 of the week. And if you're watching, same clothes. Because it's actually Monday for me. I'm actually at Disney World right now. True story. Unless got in a plane crash or something like that. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I am your man on the ground, except for today. I am your man in Orlando. Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And we are today going to get into the top 10 most important players for Michigan. I've written an article by this point, theoretically, that will have posted either yesterday or today on Wolverines Wire. So we're going to go through my thoughts, but here, this is like me brainstorming, which we do a lot on this show, because usually there have been times where I go back and I discuss the things that I go back and discuss things that I've already written, and there are other times where I work out aloud on camera for you the things that I'm going to write. So that's exactly what we're going to do here today, because I have not written this yet. My plan is to write it on the plane going down to Orlando. So, location revealed. Yes, I am a glutton going back to Disney for literally one day. That's my life. Anyhow, so that's also why we're not talking Michigan basketball, because it's Monday. I can't really talk about that Maryland game. I'm also not there. So, anyhow. So let's do the 10 most important Michigan players for the 2022 season. Way too early. We'll certainly do another one down the stretch, and I'm actually going to amend this. I'm going to cheat in one way here, but nonetheless. So we'll start going downwards, and hopefully this will take the whole show, but I don't know how much I can talk about it. I don't know if I can talk about it for 20 minutes, but we're going to see. So my number 10 most important player for Michigan is the brand new center, and this certainly can change if he comes in and isn't a fit in spring ball and all that kind of stuff. But Olu Oluwatimi, the Remington Award finalist, second team All-American center, transfer from Virginia. I think the center is always uber important, right? Because we've seen when the center position is just and it almost that's the engine that kind of partially drives the offense, and having a guy that's that good coming in and replacing Andrew Vistardis is huge. And I think that this is an offensive line that can be really just as good as it was last year, if not better. Because I think that you've got some athleticism. If Trente Jones wins that right tackle spot, I think it's still going to be Ryan Hayes, Trevor Keegan. Again, Hayes hasn't announced if he's staying or going, but I'm assuming Ryan Hayes, Trevor Keegan, Olu, Zach Zinter, and then Trente Jones. I think you got a little bit more athleticism on that right side, and Trente Jones, obviously, because he played a bunch of tight end-ish kind of, or that sixth lineman. Or it could be Carson Barnhart, right? Either way, Barnhart, man, that guy's just being patient. But that's what linemen are supposed to do, right? It's been a rare thing for Michigan for the last 10 years. It's been oh, you're in your second year? Well, come on up. Because back in the 2000s, it was you'll get to play 1 or 2 years on the offensive line. That's how it's supposed to be. But Olu, I think, is going to be really, really good. And I think that he can really cement things for that Michigan offensive line. And I think that he can come in, bring some leadership, bring some cohesion, again, assuming that it's a fit. And I think it very well should be. I don't see why it wouldn't be. But that could be a big win for Michigan. We've seen other schools bring in Ohio State brought in Jonah Jackson from Rutgers, and that worked out really well for them, obviously. So those types of things can really work out. I actually had a hard time putting together just 10, because it was I wanted to go to 15. Maybe I could have done that for this podcast. Maybe I should have done it for the podcast. But I put together 10. Number 9 for me, and we're obviously we're gonna do like 3, 4, and 3 is how we're going to do this per segment. Number 9 for me is DJ Turner, cornerback from Michigan. He had an excellent second half of the season. Obviously, you need to be able to have another guy on that other side, and I would personally think that Will Johnson could be that other guy, especially because Michigan's not going to see a high-profile passing team necessarily. When I say high-profile, I mean like a good team that can also pass the ball until Maryland, and then after that, not till Penn State, and then Michigan State, and then Ohio State. So you can kind of break in another young guy, but DJ Turner really looked really good. He wasn't the liability. Unfortunately, Vincent Gray kind of looked like old school Vincent Gray against Georgia. DJ Turner, not the case. So like to see him continue his ascent. And I mean, I'm counting out Jamon Green. They haven't gone anywhere. Because Jamon Green certainly could be that other guy. But there's just some speculation that I, for some reason, am taking into account about Jamon Green and the Green Twins going elsewhere. But certainly it could be DJ Turner and Jamon Green, and that would be excellent for Michigan this upcoming year. Even though I thought Vincent Gray played better for the majority of the year. DJ Turner, I think, was very, very good for Michigan in that latter half of the year when he really got the enhanced playing time after Green got injured. So excited about his potential. Excited to see what he'll end up doing. And I think that he could be a lockdown guy on the one side. Obviously has a nose for the football, and that could be great. I'm staying with the offensive line for number 8, and I'm going with Ryan Hayes because if he comes back, man, that could be huge for Michigan. He had a pretty good year this last year, really looked a lot better than the year before, and he could really cement himself as and he's not being talked about as a potential first-round type guy, which is funny because I remember, it was like when it was him and Jalen Mayfield, it was like that was the thought, right? I mean, it was like, oh, you've got 2 first-rounders on either end. Mayfield got that cred, and Ryan Hayes didn't necessarily, but I think that Ryan Hayes certainly is a smart, heady player. He plays with a lot of grit and toughness. I think that he very well could be he could be that next great Michigan lineman. I mean, he already kind of has been on the road there, but if he can take things yet another level up, and I mean that's saying a lot considering he's coming off of the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. It could bode really, really well for the Wolverines. So I'm excited to see what he could possibly do. All right, let's move on. We will get through 7 through 4 here in segment 2. But before we do that, let's see, what am I supposed to be talking about right now? Built Bar. Y'all know how much I love Built Bar. If you don't know what Built Bar is, it's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. It's high protein, low calorie, low carb. It's delicious. I have bought dozens of boxes with my own money of my own volition, and sometimes they send me some stuff too, so you can only imagine how many I've consumed. They all clock in around the 130 calorie mark, and they've got about 20 grams of protein each, and so you've got like barely any sugar, even though there's real chocolate in there, and you can have 2 at a time like I do a lot of the time, and it's still, I'm not busting out my calorie limit for the day. So do like me, go to built.com, put in promo code LOCKED15, take the Built Bar Challenge along with me. I know a lot of you have, and those of you who have, I've gotten a lot of DMs from you guys who have said it's every bit worth the hype. So go to built.com, promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off of your next order of Built Bar. All right, let's do 7 through 4 in the top 10 most important Wolverines for 2022. Far too early edition. Don't be surprised if this becomes something that we do again in like May. It's something we do again in August, because certainly it could be changes from here until fall camp. There's always or spring ball and fall camp, because that's the thing. Maybe not as much last year because we had such limited access in the spring, but if things are kind of back to normal by spring, which, who knows if they will or will not be, knock on wood. It's one of those things where there's always these names that kind of seem like they come out of nowhere, right? Whether it's, some of them come to fruition and some of them don't necessarily. We saw a little bit of some of the 2019 guys come to fruition this year. Eric All, who I probably should have on this list, and I don't. Sorry, Eric, but You know what? Eric All's going to go on the list. I don't know where I'm going to put him. I'm going to squeeze him in here somewhere. But I'll have him as like he should be in this list. It's just like he'll be on my written list. I just don't have him in here right now because it was hard to come up with 10, right? But yeah, he's going to be important. But I'm looking at this list, and some of these guys they're going to have to be something. Anyway, let's just get to it instead of vamping here. Taylor Upshaw is my number 7. And he's not the only edge rusher I have, of course. But if Michigan's defense is going to stand a chance to be better, right? If it's going to be that everything that everyone wants it to be, which is at least close to what it was this last year, Taylor, if he is indeed coming back, needs to take a big step forward because he was considered a starter at the beginning of the year, and then David Ojabo came on. So it's going to be incumbent upon him to come in and be that guy. So, Taylor, it's up to you, man. It's your time. It's year 5, man. You got to come get it. And certainly there's some other guys that could be on there. I've got another defensive end on there. It's not Jalen Harrell, but like Jalen Harrell could be that guy, you know. But like when I look at a 5th-year guy, Taylor Upshaw, he needs to take that step forward. Needs to be him. Number 6, I'm staying with the defensive line. I'm going with Mozzie Smith, especially with Hinton gone. We don't know yet if Donovan Jeter's coming back for his 5th or 6th or whatever year it is, or if he's moving on. But Mozzie becomes that much more important as a result. Again, staying with that idea of the defense. Michigan needs to get that pressure up front, right? I have faith when it comes to the entire defense as it stands of returning starters, of which there are not many. I have faith in 2, right? Because as far as like guys I know are going to be awesome at this point, like awesome. And I didn't even mention Rad Moore in the last podcast. He's another guy that safety. I mentioned these safeties, and somehow I didn't even mention Rad Moore, who played a lot there at the end. It's gonna, the only ones that I have like absolute like undying loyalty towards starter type guys are DJ Turner and Mozzie Smith. There's more there's more defensive guys on this list ahead of them, but Mozzie, I got him at number 6. He's just got to at least come at that level that we saw last year, if not take that step forward. But you would imagine he just had his first year of finally really seeing the field. You'd imagine he's going to take that step forward because that's what usually happens. Not always, but certainly usually. Finishing out my trifecta of defensive linemen here. Number 5 is Mike Morris, who I felt like he surpassed Taylor Upshaw this over the course of the year. Started seeing him more and more. He was one of those guys that was out there with in the famed like there's after the Orange Bowl, there's JJ and Donovan and Andrell. Well, guess who was right there with him? Mike Morris. So he's getting up there in age. It was a 2018 guy, and or 2019 guy, I think. Yeah, 2019. The 2019 guy. So he's going into his do the math, his 4th year, and it's time, right? It should be incumbent upon him to become that guy. I think that he can. And but out of those 3, like Mozzie, I know he's going to be good. Taylor and Mike, you hope, because they need that production. And it's a little scary when you're replacing both defensive ends and both edge rushers. But we saw a lot of Mike Morris opposite Aiden because obviously David Ojabo was a little bit more situational. So I'm curious to see how he steps forward. All right, finishing us out in this segment, my number 4 is Ronnie Bell. Because how dynamic did that offense look for a second? And it did by the end of the year anyway. But early on, when Ronnie Bell he had that one-handed catch and they called him out of bounds. And then he has that long touchdown. And then he has that punt return. He could be a game changer. Absolute game changer on offense. Michigan could just wreck things with Ronnie Bell in there, especially when you consider all of these other receivers that potentially are coming back, right? Cornelius Johnson, Mike Sainristil, Roman Wilson, A.J. Henning, Andrell Anthony. And we haven't really seen Christian Dixon. I'm pretty sure I'm missing someone in there. Then you add in a couple others, right? Like Darius Clemens and Tyler Morris, guys that could get involved early. You've got a lot of playmakers. But Ronnie Bell is probably still your best playmaker. So I'm curious to see what he does. And then you add in other guys that aren't even on this list, like Donovan Edwards. Donovan Edwards, I don't even have on this list. And I think ultimately Donovan Edwards could end up being your best playmaker by the season's end on offense. But Ronnie Bell, best receiver for 2 years, was looking like it. I mean, he was a guy that caught everything thrown his way. He was just a dynamic athlete. I've been saying, like, he's every bit as good as Chris Olave, and people weren't talking about him like that until he got injured. So I think that Ronnie Bell, hugely important. If he can come back healthy, pick up where he left off, man, Michigan's offense could be incredible. All right, let's move on. But this is it, the putt to win the tournament. If you sink it, the championship is yours. But on your backswing, your hat falls over your eyes. Is this how you're running your business? Poor visibility because you're still relying on spreadsheets and outdated finance software. To see the full picture, you need to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle. Listen, NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system to power your growth. With visibility and control of your financials, inventory, HR, planning, budgeting, and more, NetSuite is everything you need to grow all in one place. With NetSuite, you can automate your processes and close your books in no time while staying well ahead of your competition. 93% of surveyed businesses increased their visibility and control after upgrading to NetSuite. Over 28,000 businesses already use NetSuite. So for the new year, NetSuite has a new financing program for those ready to upgrade at netsuite.com/locked. So head over to netsuite.com/locked for this special one-of-a-kind financing offer on the #1 financial system for growing businesses. That's netsuite.com/locked. So if you're watching this on YouTube, what you can't see is just like in second episode of the week, Tuesday's episode, I have a very needy puppy here. Right now she's underneath the desk. So if you see my arms doing a bunch of weird things, it's because I'm petting this dog that just requires all the attention. It's funny because when I'm not recording, she's just like, oh, whatever. And then I start talking and she's like, oh, he's talking to me. I need to be involved. So she's involved in the podcast right now. All right, let's continue on with our countdown. We've got the top 3. My number 3 most important 2022 players in my too early list for Michigan football is Junior Colson. Listen, you need a game breaker in the middle of that defense. And Colson, obviously, we saw him more and more as the season wore on. He was excellent. Was really starting to come on. It wasn't necessarily like one of the top players when you look overall. And as far as tackles are concerned, I don't think he was. I'm trying to see here. Looking at tackles this past, he's number 4 in tackles, actually. I was thinking he was down there. Number 4 in tackles, number 2 linebacker. Josh Ross had 106. Junior Colson in 14 games had 61. Ahead of Nikhai Hill-Green, who had 50. Ahead of, I don't even see where Kalel Mullings is, 21. He had 11. Junior Colson, to me, it's his time to step into that Josh Ross role, that Devin Bush role, be that leader. I think that Nikhai Hill-Green might be like the vocal leader of the linebacking core. I think that he has that type of mentality. And I can't believe I kind of wasn't thinking of him as much. Like him and RJ Moten, people asking who are your leaders defensively. Probably those 2 guys. But Junior Colson could be that playmaker. You know, he's pretty new to football and played pretty good. You know, in his first year, he really could have that capability of like maybe not quite Devin Bush, but I think when he leaves Michigan, it could be like he might end up being among those best. You'll look at like him and like Jarrett Irons and a whole bunch of names that I can't remember off the top of my head, and I think that he could be that type of guy. So he's my number 3. My number 2 is Blake Coram. Because obviously you lose Hassan Haskins. And I think we spent most of the year talking about Blake Coram as being that guy anyway, right? And I think, though, like now it's going to be incumbent upon him. And he's a different kind of back, obviously. And it will still probably be a 1-2 punch with him and Donovan Edwards. But now you really are putting it on Blake Coram's plate of saying, be that guy. And I mean, I think he's got it in him. And I mean, obviously, we've seen him be like this outstanding playmaker. But how does he do when it's not like, thunder and lightning? That's the big question. But the onus is going to be on him to keep that run game up near the top. What if he gets better? That's the thing that people probably aren't thinking, or asking. He was just shy of 1,000 yards rushing this last year. What if he gets better? What if he is out there just clowning people? And that certainly could happen. And say hi to Zuri if you're watching the YouTube, because here she is climbing me, ready to go. She's fast like Blake Coram. I don't know who would win in a race because she's pretty fast. But anyhow, my number 1, I'm cheating. It's a tie. Kade Mcnamara and JJ McCarthy. Because who knows who the guy is going to be. If they go full competition, JJ's got everything between the ears, all ready to go. I mean, he very well could end up beating out Kade because he's that talented. And that's not a knock on Kade. I mean, I'm still would pencil in Kade as the starter. And I still am excited about Kade Mcnamara because I think Kade McNamara has got a lot of room for growth, right? This was his first full year as a starter. Usually when quarterbacks are out there just killing it, it's usually their second year or third year or something like that when they take that next step, right? Joe Burrow. I'm not saying that Cade's going to be Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow in his first year at LSU was like, hey, look, they've got a serviceable quarterback. Year 2, insane. I mean, that unfortunately could be the same for C.J. Stroud at Ohio State, but I don't know how much better he can get. I mean, he was pretty freaking good. But, I mean, Justin Fields, second year, type thing. He was pretty good in his first year as well. Tua Tagovailoa, second year. Trevor Lawrence, second year. I know I'm mentioning these transcendent guys, but I mean, even like Kenny Pickett. I don't know how many years he started there. Usually it's not that first year that they come out as guns a-blazing, unless you're a surprise like Keaton Slovis. But, I mean, Stetson Bennett, second year. I mean, not his second year in the program, second year as a starter. Look at what he did. But whoever it is, be with the bulk of the snaps, and heck, they might be 50-50 in snaps. Who knows what Michigan's going to do? It could be a game changer, especially Ronnie Bell back. I listed all of those wide receivers, not to mention Eric All, Luke Schoonmaker. Start getting in, some of those other tight ends. Matthew Hibner, Louis Hansen, Colston Loveland, Marlon Klein. A lot of weapons. This offense, I've got to tell you, sitting here in January, I know you're listening on January 19th or after. On January 17th, I am stoked about what Michigan has on offense. All right. That's going to do it for us today. We will be back tomorrow with breaking down the schedule. I know it's a week late, but we're about to do it. We go game by game. I'm going to tell you the good, the bad, all of that kind of stuff. Not a deep dive. We'll save that for closer to the season. Just cursory thoughts going game by game. All right, so thank you for watching and or listening. We will be back tomorrow, Thursday. Not a mailbag because we did 2 literally. Well, we did 1, but we broke it down. Maybe we'll probably do a mailbag on Friday is how we'll probably do it for the week. And then eventually we'll get back to doing Thursday now that I'm not hacking up a lung. So from Disney World, even though it's not where I am here in this video, I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole. Thanks for watching and or listening. Peace.